Government Postgraduate College, Gojra, who always shows such a love for me. And I am really amazed by all the positive vibes that I get from you people. So thank you very much.
No, sir.
I'm also thankful to all of my participants. Yes, Ali, if you want to say something.
No, sir, I want to say that it's an honor for us, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, uh, let's start today's lecture. And the one thing that I would like to say that this is probably the most current relevant topic, and the facts, theory, and all the related issues that we are going to discuss today are very much part of our lives. They affect our life and they shape our life, and there is no escape. We are living in the age of post truth. Now, post truth, apparently, it appeared that it started only in uh, 2016 with Donald Trump and Brexit movement. But when I started studying about I came to know that its intellectual roots started with Plato. In today's lecture, I first gave you the breakdown of today's lecture, that I will introduce you with post-truth, history of the word, different theories of truth, then fake news, populism, and at the end, the discussion will shift towards the link between post-truth, postmodernism, and literature. So in this way, this
Sir,
presentation, ji,
sir,
yes,
some of the viewers are unable to hear you. Please adjust your mic first.
okay. Please let me know if you can hear me or the kind of problem that you are facing. Please share in the chat box.
जी जी sir.
Hi,
It's okay, sir. Now please speak, sir.
just a minute, let me make sure. Okay, thank you very much. Uh, so as you can see the screen, okay, thank you very much. Now, as you can see on the screen, the title, Post-Truth and Postmodernism, Reality and Literature. Uh, in 2016, the Oxford Dictionary selected post-truth as the word of the year and defined it as a term relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential and in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotions and personal belief. Now, two things are very important here. That objective facts means you may call neutral facts, systematic facts, the facts that don't have any agenda attached to them. They became less important. And what became more important? Emotions and personal belief. It means beliefs. It means that subjectivity became more important than objectivity. Mm, well, I am actually not recording this lecture.
I'm recording, sir. I'm recording.
Okay, thank you then. Okay, then fine. Uh, now, what is the history of this word? So, the history of this word is the word post truth was used for the first time by a Serbian writer, Steve Tisich, and he the first word that he used for the post truth was actually lies. That post-truth is about lying. And he criticized American President George Bush, the senior, when he was waging a war against Serbia and all other, uh, even in Gulf as well, that uh, those who hold power, they actually don't believe in truth. Truth doesn't matter to them. Then this term resurfaced in 2004. A book was published called The Post-Truth Era. And this time, the backdrop of United States presidential elections and Brexit movement. Actually, these two moments in history, they brought to light this word post-truth. Earlier, the term or phrase post-truth was there, but this concept was an obscure one. People did not know much about it. But the way President Trump won election and way the lies about immigrants and the fears of the British people were raised about the impending threats of staying in the European Union, that highlighted that actual facts, truths, they don't matter. What matters is appeal to people's emotions, and what matters is to focus on the fears of the people. Post-truth, then what it is? Post-truth, uh, broad notion that affects many aspects of daily life. Now it affects our daily life. This is important. It surfaces most clearly where information is most prominently circulated and thus more susceptible to it. Politics, social media, internet, and the media. And in current circumstances, we can add what is happening around COVID 19. That there are so many rumors, so many theories, so many conspiracies that some people say, as we all know, that it was generated in a lab. Some say that it is American conspiracy. Some say that it is Chinese conspiracy. So in this way, there are so many computations of reality. Okay, so this is what we mean by competing representation of reality. That COVID-19 is one phenomenon, but conspiracy theories, you may call it, or the way it is represented, they are multiple. Each presenting themselves as truthful and others as false, and each leading in one or more ways to a devaluation or crisis of facts. That people, they are not after what is truth or what are the genuine facts, rather they are just concerned with what is being taught to them or what suits them. This is very important. In post-truth world, only those truths matter, those suit us. This is the simplest definition of truth. Truth itself is not at stake. Actually, the way we approach it, that is what matters. So, what is happening? Through overflow of facts, cherry picking, facts used too selectively. Cherry picking means that we select only those facts that suit us, and we reject those facts that don't suit us. Then, without proper contextualization and misrepresentation, all these things, they are currently happening vis-a-vis COVID-19. That we are not interested in genuine facts, that in America people are picking truth or facts about COVID selectively. Chinese, they are doing things in one way or other, and most of the people are talking without proper contextualization. Uh, the crisis of facts or whatever it is, the crisis of post-truth denotes a shifted sense of reality. So biggest casualty is here, reality itself. One that has become utterly unmoved from facts. Unmoved means disconnected. Facts and reality, they have become disconnected from each other, and they are the biggest casualty. And our attitude towards truth is basically apathetic, that we are not sympathetic towards truth, we are just callous towards facts, because we don't believe in objective facts. We want the facts that actually suit us. Post truth, as a matter of fact, is a multifaceted term, and post truth is interdisciplinary, and it brings insights and theories from politics, philosophy, and literary studies. So all the major areas of study, they are affected by it. Now look at those things. Concretely, post-truth is in shape of alternative facts. Alternative fact means that there is one truth that is the real truth or the real fact, and people come up with alternative facts. And fake news, this is the hottest thing in the world today, that people spread fake news through social media. And that fake news has caused so many deaths in India as well. Then another major thing is misinformation and disinformation. And post truth is actually the work of populism, is the direct result of populist politics. Uh, the term alternative fact is simply put in an elegant way of saying bullshit. So when you ignore the main fact and go for the facts that are not based on facts, you may call, the philosophers, they would say that alternative facts are actually not the real facts. Misinformation, as you know, denotes both intentional and unintentional thing. And there is a difference between misinformation and disinformation. Whereas misinformation is the result of unintentional activity. Disinformation is deliberate. Now I would discuss four theories of truth briefly. The first is correspondence theory of truth. The key truth is a relation between a proposition and the word. Proposition here you may just call a statement, that a statement that we must and its relation with the word. A preposition is true if and only if it corresponds to a fact in the word. Now, this proposition or statement is correct only if it is based on real facts in life. The correspondence theory, therefore, anchors truth in reality. That truth should be whatever we say about something, that should be based on reality. But for this to happen, there are two things or two criteria that must be met. Uh, First is, it must be possible in principle to find the relevant fact that in the world that corroborates with preposition. That fact and statement, there should be some common link, or the fact should be in such a form that it could be expressed in a statement or sentence. And other thing is, this is very important, and the proposition or the person asserting the proposition must stand in direct relation to this fact in this world. Now, this is just like if we narrate something, but we don't have any personal information about that, then that the narrator becomes suspect and the preposition also becomes suspect. Then is coherence theory of truth maintains that key to truth is the relation between propositions. There are two statements about anything, they should be coherent. And then this coherence theory, it depends on the statements. It does not relate or anchor those statements in the real world. This is the problem. That A is equal to B is equal to C is equal to A. Theoretically, it may be correct, but practically, it might not happen. So, coherence theory does not have any concrete referent in the real world. So, next is pragmatic theory of truth. Pragmatic theory of truth, whose prominent includes Charles Peirce, William James, and Richard Rorty, that key to truth is utility. The value of truth in a proposition is determined according to practical outcomes and the utility that serves. That if truth serves some purpose, it's truth or it's a fact. If it does not serve any purpose, it's not truth. So this actually generates a relativistic approach to truth. What is utilitarian in one person to one person is not necessarily utilitarian to another person. And consequently, something that is considered the truth because of its utility to one person is not the truth for the other person. So what is the utility of for one person can be different from the utility of other person because things they are cultural. For example, if we just look at India, what is happening there, that cow urine is very holy to them and it has a utilitarian or pragmatic value for them. For us, it does not carry any significance. So this is relative. Then this is the approach that is generally preferred, but it has also very negative connotations as well. No one maintains that there is no one key to the truth, that there is no single truth. Truth is a function that may be manifested in several ways, that there can be different ways a truth can be expressed, or there can be many truths at the same time. For every manifestation of truth, there is a different definition of the criteria of truth. This is important here. Criteria of truth, that you select one criteria of truth for one situation and you select another criteria for the same situation for the same thing in a different context. So in this way, it makes truth an ambiguous concept. This is very important actually. This under determination theory is the most relevant. The under determination thesis maintains that same set of empirical data can support different and even contradicting scientific theories. That same set of data or same set of examples, they can be used to support two opposite arguments. The same empirical data can be explained using different theories. This is another aspect. That's one thing can be used, can be described differently with different theories. So theories here, they become important. The empirical data does not retain its significance. Then post-truth and Plato. Uh, this is by philosopher Steve Fuller. In Socratic Dialogue, The Republic, Plato maintained that the philosopher king must hold knowledge and the truth. What does it mean? That whatever the philosopher king decides that this is knowledge, this is truth, that should be taken as knowledge and as truth by the citizens. And in this way, and draw the differentiation between truth and falsehood from him. That the people of Athens, citizens of Athens, they should draw the differentiation between truth and falsehood from the philosopher king. So truth itself, knowledge itself, it doesn't matter. What the philosopher king says, that matters. That is knowledge and that is truth. Uh, what is happening what is happening in the post-truth era of today is precisely what Plato feared would happen. Battles between political powers competing against each other over truth. So this is what is happening at this moment. So bigger reality than facts and truth is power. That power decides what is truth and what is not. Now here uh, Fuller raises a very important question. The battles waged in the current post-truth era are not battles of first order about what is true and what is false. Now, earlier, all the philosophy, it focused on just one issue, that was seek truth and what is false. In the earlier debates, there was the criteria of truth and particularly about who determines what these criteria are. Now, truth itself is not important. Criteria of truth itself is not important. Rather, who determines these criteria? Who determines who is terrorist? Now, in last 20 years, 15 years, 20 years, you have seen that America declared certain sections of certain religious groups as terrorists. Now, when we check facts, then we see that America has killed more people than anything else. So, the criteria for deciding what is truth lies with the power. Next important thing is populism. Populism is a political movement which seeks to represent the interests of ordinary citizens. Populism is actually based on slogans, slogans that have nothing to do with the reality, slogans that play with the feelings and emotions of the people, slogans that actually create fear among the people. And populism thinks in simplistic opposites, the people versus the corrupt elite, for example, and tends to use people's fears and enthusiasms for political gain. For example, by exploiting and maintaining a state of chaos. Just what happened in England prior to Brexit. They created so much fear about Brexit, immigration, that so many immigrants they will enter UK and they will take away all the jobs. They will create problems of law and order, and there will be terrorism in UK. And in this way, they created fear. And what was the result? That they were able to manipulate people to their designs. Okay, please just refrain from saying anything in the chat box for the moment. I will discuss and respond to your questions later on. In the current scenario, Trump, Moody, Boris Johnson, they are the examples. You can have other examples as well from our own country as well. Now, this is again fake news. And if you watch CNN and listen to Donald Trump, he daily accuses CNN of fake news, though he himself may be spreading it. Fake news is a particular strain of disinformation, denoting incorrect, often damaging, and misleading news articles. Now, the fake news that Donald Trump calls, we are not concerned with that. He is just leveling allegations. We are concerned with the real fake news. Real fake news in the sense that news that is really fake, that is information that denotes incorrect, often damaging and misleading news articles, usually disseminated by via online media. These are deliberately designed to look like actual news. You must have seen certain notifications as well. They look so similar to the genuine and official notifications. And later on, they turn out to be just fake news. The term fake news has even come to include factually correct articles that do not suit an individual's agenda, but then they are thrust on the individual that whether or not those articles or that information suits that people, but then they keep supplying the individual with that kind of information. Mm, Now, philosopher Hannah Arendt, her views are very important on post-truth. She says that truthfulness and honesty have never been counted among the virtues of a politician. That lies have always been regarded as necessary and justifiable tools of politicians and statesmen. So, one word definition of post truth is lying. People lie, just lie. Now, I come to the most important philosopher of the contemporary era, the historian of the contemporary era. And he says that fake news is not a new news, it is old news. That at the outset of the 20th century, truth isn't even in worse shape than it was in previous periods. What does it mean? That there has always been fake news. In a sense, he said, the post-truth phenomenon typifies Homo sapiens, and our power is rooted in our ability to create stories and fabrications and then believe them. So this is what we all do. We all create stories, false narratives. So in one way or the other, we all are involved in post-truths. We tell fake stories, false stories to our children. Sometimes we narrate anecdotes that are not based on truths. So these are all examples of post-truth, like myths, religions, ideologies, which enable the creation of cooperation and ties between complete strangers. Uh, According to Harari, a historian, Homo sapien have always preferred power over truth. So this is the biggest reality of human life, human existence. That power has always been truth. This is simple. And have invested more time and effort in ruling the world than in trying to understand it. What still makes the current trend of fake news different, said Harari, is technology. The only thing is that now it is easy to spread fake news and which enables us to tailor propaganda on an individual basis and match the lies to the individual prejudices. Now, this is what happens with the social media, that all the social media uh, institutions or bodies, they use logarithms, artificial intelligence, and then they select they focus on our use of social media, our likes and dislikes, and they start sharing ads and all the other information according to our likes and dislikes. So in this way, technology has actually has been able to customize propaganda according to individual needs. Now, this is what is happening today, that trolls and hackers use big data algorithms to identify each person's unique weaknesses and tendencies and then fabricate stories consistent with them. This is the current shape of or current manifestation of post-truth, that this use of big data and the use of algorithms to identify each person's unique weaknesses and tendencies. And if you are interested in studying the role of big data, you must study Harari's 21 lessons for 21st century. That's all about this, how computer will rule human beings and replace human beings, how human intelligence will be overtaken by artificial intelligence. And this is the worst kind of scenario that we can imagine. Uh, what do the trolls and hackers do? They use these stories to reinforce the prejudices of those believing in them. For example, if we, for example, we all fear corona. and somebody just starts spreading the news that some people around us, they are having it, or they are spreading coronavirus, that will automatically create fear among us, and that will exacerbate the situation and then puncture the whole fabric of the society. So trolls and hackers and all these people, they have actually the real power these days. They can change the agendas and all that. This again, Lee McIntyre's opinion on post-truth, they are also very relevant. Argues that the innovation in the post-truth phenomena is not the denial of the existence of truth, that people don't deny that truth does not exist and facts, but rather is the subjugation of facts to personal preconceptions and a subjective perspective. If you just look at the politics, our national politics even, that same facts are used by different parties for different interpretations and for different purposes. So the facts themselves, they are not important. We use those facts according to our subjective perspectives. Some facts are more important than others, that we become very selective. We select our own criteria. Uh, is the extent that fact concurs with his opinion and his personal perspective. Rather, we watch those TV channels which suit us. For example, if you are a supporter of one particular party and you know that this TV channel supports this political party, we always go for that TV channel, and we don't go for the channel that opposes our opinions or that promotes certain people whom we don't like. So in this way, the very selection of TV channel shows our subjective preferences, that we are not interested in objective news or information, that we want something to satisfy our soul, our own agenda. Now, this is again very important. What is the difference between liar and bullshitter? But there's a book on bullshit. Both liar and bullshitter want to convince their audience that they are telling the truth, and both try to conceal something from their audience. But there is a one big difference. The liar accepts the differentiation between truth and falsehood. So liar is better placed. That liar knows that whatever he is saying, that is a lie, and is deliberately lying to conceal the truth from his audience. The bullshitter rejects any differentiation between truth and falsehood. He does not believe between what is truth and what is not. Now I come to the last part of the lecture, that is post-truth and postmodernism. What is the link between the two? Now, some scholars say that postmodernism is the direct cause of post-truth, that this is the postmodernism that has created post-truth, echoing the science wars that took place within American academia in 90s and all that. Then there is another opinion that looks more valid, who argue that postmodernism, rather than being its cause, provides a framework and the tools necessary to understand post-truth. That postmodernism did not cause post-truth, rather it explains post-truth. They see post-truth as a perverse realization of postmodern ideas about knowledge rather than a product thereof. They argue postmodernists through doubt on conventional understandings of truth and reality. Yet this is all we all know, that postmodernism rejects anything that is conventional. And postmodernism also questions the traditional concepts of truth and reality. Post-truth perverts this doubt into denial, whereas postmodernism makes us skeptic. Post-truth results in denial. That is the next stage, that we are no longer skeptic about fact. In post-truth, in postmodernism, we are skeptic about facts. In post-truth, we just deny the truth. So this is the difference between post-truth and post-modern. Now I come to literature. Literature and literary studies offer many different approaches and concepts that are useful in an exploration of the relationship between fiction and reality in a post-truth. Now, in postmodernism, fiction and reality, they lose the traditional link that they had in the pre-postmodern era. For example, in realism, we all know, we believed that literature reflects society. Now, if we say that literature reflects society, literature mirrors society, literature describes society, literature narrates society, then that is pre-postmodern approaches. But if we say literature constructs society, instead of describing reality, literature construct reality, we become postmodern. So this is a difference between postmodernism and earlier theories about literature. Now we are familiar with suspension, willing suspension of disbelief, but also literature's ability to represent, reflect, and interact with reality. Now let's see what comes next. The tension between fiction and reality reaches new heights in postmodern literature. And that starts with post-structuralism. In the absence of closure and the question of identity. Closure means before post-structuralism, in the structural era, the meaning was contained in the language. That is called closure. Or where we believed that the texts, they describe reality in a very comprehensive way. That literature is a complete and compact whole. That is closure. And the absence of closure is that literature does not control reality or gives complete reality. Rather, literature complicates reality. It constructs its own reality, and as language itself is a product of difference, product of difference means that language works on the principles of difference. That is, meaning is product of difference and meaning is deferred. If meaning is product of difference, it means that meaning can never be same. And if meaning is deferred, it means that there is no final meaning. If there is no final meaning, it means there is no closure. The text, they continue to have new meaning. So these are doubts about doublings, disappearance, and all that. Role of language, representation, deconstruction of binary oppositions, intertextual nature of text. And the most important quotation you must be familiar with, that is of Derrida, that there is nothing outside the text. And one more quotation from him is that there is no center at the center. And we are then living in postmodern era, in which postmodernism actually cherishes these things: fragmentation, irony, paradox, humor culture, parody, unreliable narratives, metafiction, rejection of authenticity, authority, meta narratives. Postmodern literature can simultaneously provide strangest fictions and the most confronting mirrors. So in this way, postmodernism can challenge our all the perceptions and can put us in a very awkward situation, in the sense that the things to which we are used to, postmodernism just challenges them, and it just provides a different perspective to them. It lends itself to the concept of defamiliarization, difference, and the uncanny techniques that enhance readers' perception of a discomfort with familiar things. So this is what postmodernism does. It brings us out of familiar things. It shocks us. It gives a totally different perspective. And we find ourselves in a world that is marred by confusion instead of consensus. Then postmodernism impedes reading, forces the reader to read slowly, and actively reflects on and resists the suspension of disbelief. Now, earlier, there was identification between the reader and the text. The readers identified themselves with the storyline. The readers identified themselves with characters. The readers, they identified themselves with the meaning. Now, in postmodern era, we find alienation. The reader does not identify himself or herself with the text or the meaning or the characters. So postmodern literature may provide valuable insights into post-truth societies. Like post-truth, this is important. Fiction has a complex relationship with objective facts and tends to create its own version of the truth. Now, just I gave example of Taliban. Now, all the fiction that was written in America, they presented Taliban according to their own perspective. Okay, they created their own fiction about Taliban. And if somebody who supports Taliban, he would create a different kind of fiction. So fiction itself has become just fiction. There is no room between there is no link between the signifier and the signified. And as Derrida says, that there are no signified, there are only signifiers. And signifiers, they are floating. Or in other words, language is non-mimetic, non-referential, and self-reflexive. Self-reflexive means that language draws attention only towards itself. It does not relate to outside reality. So in this way, literature then does not describe any outside reality. Literature creates its own reality. And post-truth can be defined in another way, in a very simple way. Post-truth only means whose truth. That is what post-truth is. Truth itself, no. Whose truth? That is important. Literature is not merely a representation of given world, but the creation of a different one. Every writer creates his own text, his own world, according to his own agenda. By by obeying certain rules, acknowledging certain facts, propagating certain visions, and ignoring others, authors create their own worlds and their own truths and invite others to share in them and suspend their disbelief. So writers, they create among us willing suspension of disbelief. This is the role that writers play. Uh, As Rancière argues, both politics and literature can make things visible and invisible. Visible, as we all know, that male is visible in literature and female is invisible in literature and society. If we look at the feminist perspective, and this politics of making things visible and invisible are the most ideological and the most subtle politics that are played by the authors through a redistribution of sensible, each through their own kind of representation. Now I end today's discussion with a long quote, but this is very important. The mob believes everything it is told. So this is post-truth, this is fake news, this is populism, provided only that it can be repeated over and over. And this is the role of social media in WhatsApp groups, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and other things, provided to that its passions, hatreds, fears are catered to. So all that it has to do, that it must act on our emotions and fears. No need one try to stay within the limits of the plausibility. No. On the contrary, the grosser, the bigger, the cruder the lie, the more readily is it believed and followed. So the bigger lie, the worse lie, the grosser lie is accepted very easily. And the second part of same quotation is, nor is there any need to avoid contradictions. That if there are contradictions, no problem. The mob never notices, needless to pretend to correlate what is said to some with what is said to others. For example, politicians, they say something in one area and say different thing to other people. And the contradictions, they are very obvious. But the followers of those leaders, they don't focus on them. One person or group believes only what he is told, not what anyone else is told. Needless to strive for coherence, no search for a coherent truth. No. The mob has no memory. People forget what the leaders say during the election campaigns and what they do after the elections are over. Needless to pretend to any truth. And when the politicians uh, they make promises, they know that they will not fulfill them. And the audience also knows that these are just political slogans, election campaign slogans. Nobody takes them seriously. The mob is radically incapable of perceiving it. The mob can never comprehend that its own interests are what is at stake. So, in today's world, where populism is the one of the worst characteristics of current age, social media plays the most important role in our lives. And the biggest casualty of social media is truth. So we live in post-truth world and we need to be very careful in identifying between what is truth and what is not truth. The only uh, way we can counter post truth is that we need to be critical, that we need to look at both sides of an issue. And if you uh, ask me to recommend one formula to counter post truth, then formula is that we need to give some space to the opinions of the others. What Todd calls alternative narratives. That we need to get rid of some of our own convictions. Okay, thank you very much. If you have any questions, I am here to answer them. You can put those questions in the chat box and you can even raise hand. I
Now,
hope it was
sir, now I would like to invite all of the participants to ask questions. If somebody has any question, he may press
okay.
the hand
Okay,
raise
just
button.
wait a minute. Okay, just one. Give me 1 minute to set
Please,
the.
sir.
Yes, please.
Uh,
Wait.
Participants, you may ask any question regarding this presentation. Uh, in order to ask a question, you must press the raise hand button and then you will be invited to ask the question. Please press the button and then ask the question. Sir, please unmute all the participants first.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Mute pathway.
Okay, I think the best option is that you should put your question in the chat box. And one thing more that I will share uh, these slides with Ali Raza Fahad, and you can get these slides from him if you are interested. I hope I was able to convey some important facts about post-truth. I am grateful to all of you for listening to me, and I am especially thankful to Ali Raza for managing all this. Okay, philosopher king, that was actually Plato's idea that the king should also be a philosopher. And in his republic, there was no room for illiterate people. Only those who were educated and only male and those who could argue, they were supposed to be the citizens of that republic. So in this way, this is very famous. Uh, is it possible to arrive at reality which is free from propaganda? No. The thing is that reality is constructed with language. And language, the choice of words, actually, that is political. And from this very choice onwards, everything becomes subjective, everything becomes political. It's not possible to have a neutral reality or neutral fact. Truth is always subjective, reality is always subjective. Truth is relative. This is actually a bigger reality that one what is truth in one culture is not truth in another culture. It does not mean, in other words, the if you want to mm, have just one recipe for all these questions, that recipe is that basically truth is cultural. What is truth in one culture is not truth in other culture. And the biggest reality then is the difference. Difference actually describes what is truth and what is not truth. Yes, if any other question, please.
Any question? What is that? Sir, I am unable to send a question there in the chat box. Therefore, I will ask you questions straight here. Doesn't it seem
Yes.
that post-truth more a realization of the tools of fact distortion and construction mechanisms?
Actually, we are living in the age of the construct. Construct means socially developed or prepared ideas. Construct means the use of language. Actually, we are living in the age of discourse. What is discourse? Discourse is the efficient use of language. So, construct, reality, discourse, truth, they are all actually language. This is the use of language that creates all of these things.
But sir, we see that from the age of Plato, there was a concept of shadow and reality, imitation, representation, personal, subjective, as you used to teach us when we were your students at ample level, that there is no reality before postmodernism, uh, in postmodernism. there was something and now there is nothing. Now everybody is creating their own constructs and realities. Then how to pin the truth now? How can we spot the truth, identify the truth, sir? Actually,
As I discussed during the presentation, the thing is that earlier truth itself was not a question. Okay. Identification of the truth, that was the real issue.
yes, sir.
People believed between truth and lies. Now, in the current era, what has happened that earlier there was a link between language and the referent. Language refer to some outside reality.
Hmm.
Now we are living in an era where language is non-referential.
Yes,
It means language creates reality. Similarly, language creates truth. So truth depends on the language that we use. And language is the product of a culture. So truth in this sense depends on the culture in that in which we live. So basically, from Plato to this day, the one difference about truth is that earlier all the debates they were epistemological. Now these debates are more ontological, and these debates about ontology have actually created this current a postmodern scenario in which ontology has become cultural. So everything is now ideological, everything is now cultural.
yes, sir.
Yes.
Any other questions? If any of the participants have, they may ask in the chat box or on the live call. If they put press the button, raise hand button, then he will be given a chance to speak directly to Dr. Saab. I'm scrolling down to chat box, and finding questions if there is any.
Mm,
Or
there is no question. I hope no question is a good question.
okay, sir. Thank you very much for your time, for your wonderful ideas that you shared with us, and I hope you will also you will again honor us with your precious time again.
I am always available. I am grateful to you and I am grateful to all the listeners for listening me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
See
much,
you
sir.
next time, inshallah. Okay, Allah Hafiz.